Welcome to another Liminal podcast, musings and conversations about personal and interpersonal growth and transformation, brought to you by Liminal Transformational Coaching. And my name is Burgert Kirsten. And this episode is part 3 in a series on making friends with anxiety with Bakkes. So I do suggest that you listen to part 1 and part 2 first, but just for a quick recap, in part 1, Anne shares her story of how she became really deeply acquainted with anxiety when she was diagnosed with cancer during her first pregnancy. And then in part 2, we talk about the relationship between judgment and our attachment to anxiety, and how to find that quiet place, that soul place where you can make decisions not from a judgmental or anxious place. And the topic for today is love and the relationship between love and anxiety. Before we get into the conversation, I would like to tell you about the workshop that Anne and myself will be presenting after we've done this podcast series. Um, which will be a full day workshop that we are going to present in Durbanville in the Western Cape. And it is going to be on this topic of making friends with anxiety. And if you are interested to join us for that workshop, you can go to my website and just send me an email. More information and registration details will be on the website soon as well. And if you can't make it to Durbanville, you can join us from anywhere in the world for our online series, online course that we will be doing from the 4th of August. And that's going to be spread over 6 weeks on a Wednesday for an hour and a half. And it will be an online interactive workshop. And space for that is also limited. So if you're interested in that and you want to make sure you get a place, you can also just send me an email, and more details and the registration information will be also on the website pretty soon. But let's get back to the conversation on love and anxiety.
The moment we start inviting love, we are talking about the relationship with self and then with others. And in the research, when you try and look for a definition of love, then what comes up is that love is so diverse that no one definition can describe it in its totality. So then they talk about different types of love.
Yes.
And the moment you go into a loving space, specifically love to self, there's a relationship happening between your head and your heart. And ideally, we make our best decisions when those two are aligned.
Oh, that's so beautiful, because I once thought or heard, or I don't know, drew this insight from the collective consciousness that wisdom is the tension between your head and your heart. Or when your head and your heart is integrated, there you find wisdom. Because often we find this, my head says this, but my heart says this, and which one? And again, we get into this dualistic space. Should I listen to my head or should I listen to my heart? But it's like, but where you integrate the head and the heart, that's where you find real wisdom.
And that's the best place to make a decision from, because it's often the most sustainable decision. It's often the decision that in the long run has the best side effects. And when you invite love, and often people say to me, so what does love mean?
Yeah.
So I think love means different things to different people. But if, there's a song that goes poetry in motion.
Yes.
So I'd like to describe love in motion. And one of the ways love manifests itself is by being present in your own company and in the person next to yours company. Being present is an actual manifestation of love, because you're giving something to that person in which magic happens.
Yeah.
When you listen to Brene Brown, when you read Carl Rogers, when you interact with Jung and Frankel's material, they tell you that undivided attention, unconditional acceptance and love is the only place where creative thoughts start appearing. And when you're in a relationship to another person, you know when someone's present.
Yeah.
You know, when I look at people and they have dinner together and they're more on their phones than they are with each other.
Yeah.
And I think, I wonder where that connection is.
Yeah.
That you, and I'm not saying don't do Facebook. I'm just saying that deep connection between two human beings, that being totally present is one of the manifestations of love.
Sure. Yeah. And that relates to me what we talked about last time about judgment. As soon as you go into judgment, you're not fully present. Because
Not at all.
you filter your experience through your judgments. But
through the shoulds, what
yes,
should happen.
Yeah. But when you're fully present with another person, you give them your full attention and you're just curious. You also actually help them to become present. Because I've seen that. Presence creates presence.
It's hard for another person to be on their laptop when you give them your undivided attention.
Yeah, yeah.
There's that connection that just flows.
Yeah.
And one way of displaying being present is to listen to hear and not to listen to answer.
Yeah. In improvisation, we say, be changed by what you hear.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that that also relates for me to Otto Scharmer's theory. He's got these 4 levels of listening, and the last level he calls generative listening. It's when your listening creates almost this space where something new can emerge from, something creative can come out.
And if you think about it, that is practicing love. That's love in motion. I mean, our time and our attention are possibly 2 of the most precious things we have.
Mm.
And if that is unconditional and undivided, that's that generative space where people think and where their decisions is made from a healthy space.
Yeah.
And the unintended or intended consequences from those decisions, they snowball in positivity.
Yeah.
And I think we need to understand that love isn't always comfortable and mushy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Because another step in how you are, your love in motion is to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued.
Yes.
So we often say to our clients, see other people, hear other people. Are you valuing other people? And I think we often do that. But to receive that isn't always that natural for us. So that takes us back to judgment of self. Are you allowing people to see you in your full glory? And that means stop judging yourself.
Yeah. So relate this back to your own story.
Sure. When you've gone through a process of post-traumatic growth, I think we make so many assumptions that we say that if I can do it, everyone can do it. There's a type of thing that says, I did what I needed to do. And although that is true, there's always a process of decision making that comes through, and where you make those decisions from. And I went through a lot of guilt, and mostly our fears aren't rational. So I went through a lot of guilt of what did I do wrong and how I could have prevented this, and if I lived my life differently, would this have turned out differently? And all those self-limiting conversations that you have with yourself.
Yeah.
And then one day I realized that if I don't love who I am with all my flaws, then it's not possible to give that unconditional love to my family and my clients. Yeah. And we're not talking a romantic love. We're talking about that really being present, allowing them to see you for who you are.
Yeah.
Because we've got this thing, so we know I've got the I have to be the perfect parent issue.
Yeah.
So with that judgment, if you allow your children to see you for who you are, your husband, your clients, and I'm not saying expose inappropriately, I'm saying allow them to value you, allow them to see you, and allow them to hear you. Because for that, you have to love yourself enough to be heard.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I think sometimes we feel that our presence, when we don't love ourselves, we feel our presence isn't enough for someone else. Even as a parent, like, I have to create these amazing experiences for my kids, or I have to buy them this stuff, because just being present with them won't be enough, because I'm not enough.
You couldn't have said it more spot on. And like when you and I spoke earlier, it's really important to me that I walk my talk. So we've instigated no TV nights on Monday and Wednesday nights in our household.
Okay.
Now, it being winter is conducive to that at the moment.
Yeah.
So after homework and dinner, we sit in front of the fire.
Oh, nice.
And we play cards.
Yeah.
Or, no, my children's still small, but we play cards or we play Monopoly.
Yeah.
And we started doing this about 2 months ago. And I have my monthly catch up with my son's teacher. And just in the conversation, she said, "Oh, I heard about your card evenings." I said, "Oh, yeah." She says, "Luca can't stop talking about how that." Well, she just said how we do things together.
Yeah.
But in that space, they receive our undivided attention and our presence. Yeah. We're not focusing on anything other than them.
Yeah.
And it's made such a difference in their little lives.
It's true. How we have to today. There's so many different distractions. It's not just TV. It's your cell phone, your laptop, and we take our work home. And it's so easy to be distracted by screens that we have to actually make this decision to have those times. I notice in myself, even when I post this podcast on Facebook, there's this urge to just check, did someone share it? Did someone like it? And it's difficult sometimes just to, that's still something I want to explore, that anxiety. I actually talk a bit about it in my very first podcast. About that posting stuff on Facebook and then feeling anxious about will people like it or what will people say, what if no one likes it. But
and what often happens is that I find it a lot in our teenagers, that they get depressed quite quickly if they have shared something on Instagram and Facebook and they didn't get enough likes or responses quickly enough.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to how okay are you with who you are? That you need the likes and the positive feedback from outside. And we know that we all do need that. Every human being needs an acknowledgement of some sort, and we all need it differently. It's just interesting that if that starts owning us, where's the self-love?
Yeah.
And the more I work with people and understand them more and understand myself more, the more I realize I think that if I love myself, I have to own my brilliance. And that's sometimes more scary than owning my failures.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Why is it scarier to own your brilliance?
Because then you have to show up with all of you all the time. There's no hiding anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have to own that you are amazing. And that if people don't like that amazingness, that's okay. It doesn't detract from who you are. And you know people that own themselves. It's like sitting next to a warm fire. It's so comfortable. And I'm not talking about arrogance, because when we're arrogant, there's no new information that can enter our system. I'm just talking about being really comfortable with your human beingness.
Yeah. Rob Bell, in his book Sex God, he says sexy is being comfortable in your own skin. And that's so true, huh? People are attracted to people who are comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah. Irrespective of what they might wear and what they might look like. And that brings me back to, if you love that flaw, that judgment, that element of you that you don't enjoy, people start noticing that.
Yeah.
And love doesn't mean you're not going to change it if you really want to change it.
Yeah.
Love just means you see what's there. Love it until it's different. It's not a passive activity. It's an active activity.
So self-love is fully being present with yourself.
Yes. No hiding.
No hiding.
And it's lovely what you said about screens. It is so easy when you wait for someone to just go onto your phone and just not check in with where you are right now. You know, I very rarely see people when they wait for someone, or whether they're in the queue, that they just with themselves. And because of the work that we're doing at the moment, I've now started observing this in the Pick and Pay queue and in the bank queue and wherever I go. And when I have to wait for people at the doctor and things like that, I find that it's rare that people can just sit with themselves and be in their own company and just do a little bit of stock take. What happened today? How's my body feeling? Look at my breathing. I'm breathing so shallowly. I wonder what that's about.
Yeah.
Just that little bit of stock take to say, I had to take my children to the dentist yesterday, and I'm not sure who it was more traumatic for, me or them. And last night when I sat down for the first time after dinner and everything, I actually only realized then how traumatic the dentist experience was for me, because they had to get little injections and stuff. And although it wasn't the end of the world, that it impacted me. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I could understand why I'm so tired, why I felt so wound up. And I accepted that is what it is, and I let it go. And now I know for next time when I take them to the dentist, I'll just remember that feeling and I'll bring that back.
So in making friends with anxiety, or dealing with your anxiety, it's really about when you accept, that your anxiety, it's self-love, to sit and love that part of yourself and be with it and give it your full attention. And when you are with someone else who are anxious, often I think we want to solve their problem. We want to solve the problem for them, but just also giving that person your full attention and presence to help them work through their anxiety.
Yeah. Nancy Klein has got a thing that she calls a thinking partner.
Yeah.
And in that thinking partnership, you're only allowed to ask 2 questions. And I find that sometimes when someone we really love, when they're in a concerned space, we want to hug them to make ourselves feel better. Not so much for them to feel better.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's also, and that is the other thing about being present. It's not, so love isn't a rescuing activity.
Yeah.
It's holding the space for the person that you're with, whether they're angry, whether they're happy, and to share that with them and help them to look at what's there.
Yeah. And that's how you then help them to switch off the alarm and connect to that soul place. From where they can make a soul integrated, non-dual decision to move forward.
And you can help them remember that feeling, because sometimes we need reminding.
Yeah.
That when we get stuck in the busyness of life, we need, and I often say to my clients, just remember this feeling. Remember what your body feels like. Yeah. Remember what your breathing feels like. Remember the cellular feeling that when you get into a space where you are questioning yourself, or whether you get stuck, whether you get swept up in activity, remember this feeling and invite it back.
Yeah.
Because you can't be created.
Yeah.
And then make the decisions from there.
And if I can bring it back to improvisational theatre, the first thing that I train so I use improvisation to train, do like collaboration and innovation and communication skills workshops. But I also used to train improv actors. And the first thing that I would train them or teach them is to be present. Because if you have to go on stage without a script and you have to collaborate and co-create something that's gonna that an audience will enjoy, you have to get into that space, and you create that space for each other by being fully present with each other.
And I think when people are fully present, we spoke in the previous podcast, we spoke about trust and control.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you are present, and you know the other person is present, you immediately start trusting them in a different way, because the connection flows.
Yeah.
And I want to take it to one of the next steps that says, the moment you are present with someone, there's a different level of trust that kicks in. And then it's easier to breach conflict in terms of finding the 1% commonness in your different truths.
Yeah.
So even if we come from different perspectives, different spaces, different cultures, different upbringing, different places in the world.
Yeah.
If we can find that 1% common truth between us, we can build anything from there.
Yes.
And that's love. That's love in motion.
And that's a completely different way of listening. When you listen for the 1% alignment or 1% commonality, instead of judging everything you don't agree with.
And listening to hear and not listening to answer, because we're so conditioned to, when this person's talking, I'm already formatting my answer based on my judgments.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when you are present and you really make an effort to see them and listen to them, then it's freeing to find the common truth.
Yeah.
It's quite liberating.
Yeah. Ah, that's beautiful. There's this improv exercise where you've let people in pairs plan something, and the first round someone gives an idea, and then the other one responds with yes but, and then the other one responds again with their idea with yes but. So they just focus on what they don't agree about and give reasons why not. And then you let them do it again, and then you say, okay, now instead of saying yes but, you're going to say yes and. So you accept the other person's idea and you build on that idea. And it's incredible how your listening also shifts from listening for what's wrong with the other person's statement to what is that thing I can appreciate and agree about, and how can I build on that and add value to that? And also just on an energetic level, how it's different. The one just drains energy, and you just feels like you're just in this conflict, stuck space. The other one, you just flow, and energy builds, and people. I love often people after doing yes and they hug each other when they just the spontaneous hug. Where when you're in this yes but space, there's this place of judgment, and it creates this stuckness, this anxiety.
And we know from what we've learned that when we're anxious, we can't think. Yes. And the connection between the different brains doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Which takes me back to, I want to just build on our conversation and take that into a workplace, and where there's a workplace relationship. We've often, because of our judgment, I don't think we always realize how we disagree with people. Mm. And another way of inviting love in the workplace, and in any relationship for that matter, is provided that you truly listen and you see what's there and you suspend your judgment as much as you can. With someone, it's possible to disagree with them without undermining their self-esteem. So then you start disagreeing with the different truths and not with that individual. So it's disagreeing with what they are saying, not disagreeing with them.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, there's the old saying, play the ball, not the man.
Yeah.
And that's love in action. Love in action is listening and being present. And if you choose to disagree, doing it in such a way that it doesn't undermine anyone's self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because then you start having quality conversations.
Yes.
And that's how fantastic solutioning happens.
And again, that just listen to be changed by what you hear, and not to change the other person.
Yeah.
Sure, that also takes trust, huh?
And acceptance of self and of the person in front of you.
Yeah.
This ties into accepting doesn't mean agreeing.
Yes.
I just want to see how our podcasts integrate with all this information that you're giving.
Yeah. So what homework can you give us? How can we practice this week? Love in action.
The first thing to practice is to listen to your own self-talk.
Yeah. Yes. So start noticing what you tell yourself. What are the things you tell yourself? And just start listening to that.
With
curiosity.
When someone's made a mistake, you often hear them say, "Oh, I'm so stupid, I made a mistake."
Yeah.
And if you invite curiosity, then the self-talk goes, "I'm really interested in why that happened."
Yeah.
And then there's ability to change it the next time.
Yeah.
Where if there's that judgment and that negative self-talk, all that happens is it condemns what was done.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave an opening for a new conversation or a new solution.
Yes. Okay, so listen to your own self-talk.
Because that awareness brings change in itself.
Yeah.
And then, so this is a 3-step exercise. Okay. The second step is, once you've listened to your own self-talk, is to be brave enough to let someone close to you truly see and hear you. Show up with all of your brilliance in front of someone that you trust.
That's interesting.
And the third thing is, it leads from the second one, is see what happens inside you and with the conversation that you're in when that happens.
Excellent. Thank you, Ann. So I look forward to next week's podcast as well. It's going to be about gratitude. And Wow, thank you.
And as I said to you after our podcast last week, I have deep gratitude towards doing this work with you. I just want to say thank you with all my heart, and that this can flow the way it does.
I love it, and I thank you for the love in action today. For your presence. Yeah. And while we're in this, like, so I just want to be a salesman for a moment, because it's a role I don't enjoy. But I decided this week I'm going to be playful about being a salesman. And I thought about this during the podcast now. Coaching is love in action, because that's what you do as a coach. You give your full attention to another person and your full presence.
And you are present.
Yeah. So, Ann is a coach. I'm a coach. Get a coach. There's other coaches as well. If you're dealing with anxiety and it's something you notice some of the stuff that we're talking about, and you are not sure what to do and how to move forward in this area, you really get a coach. Doesn't have to be Ann or myself. Can be. But find someone you trust and who can give you that presence, because in that presence you can really access your creativity, find that soul place, move forward, and really shift things on your inside and on your outside. So, Ann, where can people get a hold of you? What's your website?
It is www.abakkes.com.
Awesome. All right. Till next week.